I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilwoman Spear.
Here.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Neal. Councilwoman Castle.
Here.
And Councilwoman Mortensen.
Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Sir, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate all of you. I brought in some videos. Several months back, I was here talking to you about 5G, the installation of all of this. It's coming apparently sooner or later. 5G is not really intended primarily for consumer use, more for machinery. And that's what's going to be going on. You know about they're going to be doing a lot of the TRACE Act. You've heard about it, of course. They're going to be monitoring vaccine situations. This is what it's all about. I brought in a video. I'll pass these out. Or just, the ones on the top are a little better quality. You're certainly encouraged to make copies if you like. This is a video which exposes what is called the global plandemic. And you'll see how it started at Davos with the World Economic Forum, progressed through Event 201, then the outbreak in Wuhan, and then suddenly it's all over the world. So it's much bigger than China. It's much bigger than the UN. It's very big. It's a big agenda. It's going to keep coming. This shows you who the people are. And, you know, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a short video. The gal that did this, very well-informed top journalist. She was thrown off YouTube, but she's still out there doing a great job. So,
Actually, we just want to hand those to our city manager. He can hand those to us
all right, yeah.
at the end there.
There's stuff on here. I wish there was some more, but
Thank you.
you're certainly encouraged. It's about all that. Talks about the lockdowns, talks about the masks, talks about everything that's going on. And I wanted to pass that out and let you all have that. Thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it, all of you. Is there any question or anything?
Anybody have any questions?
I have none.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually? Seeing none, great, thanks, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? No changes to the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Item 1, approval of the October 5th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Item 2, consideration of ordinance number 731-20 and update the official zoning map for the city of Evans pursuant to zoning changes that occurred in 2020. Second reading. And item 3, consideration of ordinance number 734-20, amending Title 3, Chapter 3.04, subsection 3.04.500.0 of the Evans Municipal Code to allow the city manager to designate a hearing officer to determine license revocation. Second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 4, new business. Consideration of approval of the site improvements agreement for the Eastwood Village RV Park, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. Staff has been working with the applicant on the site plan for the Eastwood Village RV Park. Along with all developments like this, we have to have a site improvement agreement, which is a form of development agreement. And so similarly for this project, we are bringing this for council's consideration tonight. And I'll ask Community Development Director Ann Bess Johnson to outline the highlights of the agreement.
Thank you, Jim. Mayor, members of City Council. So just a quick reminder of where this property is located. It's on the south side of 37th Street, just north of Riverside Park. The former wastewater treatment facility is right here, and this is the property. They are proposing to utilize some of the same layout that they did for the existing mobile home park for recreational vehicles. They are adding a large main building, which will be their check-in station. They'll have showers, facilities. They'll even have a game room in that area. The second floor is where the caretaker will live. This is the face, that is the eastern facing building. This is what will be facing on the road. This is the road side, sorry. This is the east, this is the west side, and then this is the south side of the building. There will be a detention facility in this area. This is an administrative process. All of the referral agencies are reviewing this, and we're in the final stages this week of getting it approved. This is the landscaping plan that they provided this morning. There will be trees and shrubs along 37th Street, and there will be a buffer, a fairly densely planted buffer along the western boundary, inclusive of shrubs, some evergreen trees, and deciduous trees in there as well. The outer area, we are asking them on the east side and the south side to do just like native grasses planted in that area. So that concludes the presentation on just the overall feeling of the project. And the site improvements agreement itself just outlines the items that the applicant is responsible for, such as the sewer line connection to the city's line, the lift station that may be required for 26 of the pads if needed per CDPHE regulations, domestic and fire water connection to the city's line. Facility access will be from 37th, and this is north here. Sorry, I didn't tell you that. The main facility access will be here. They'll have a locked gate, and then a secondary access will be right up here, and that is for emergency vehicles. And then they'll have a pedestrian access down here to get into Riverside Park. Fencing and the facility entrance gate, landscaping and irrigation. The city of Evans has agreed to bringing the sidewalk where the curb cut is in this area up to ADA compliance, as well as putting down some crusher fines that will lead from this gate to the trail that's approximately where that red dot is right now on the screen. About 150 feet to connect to the city's Riverside Park Trail. The ADA compliant sidewalk is estimated to be $15,000. The crusher fine trails is estimated to be $2,500. And staff has worked with the applicants through Eastwood Village and does recommend approval of the RV Park Site Improvements Agreement as presented to you this evening. There are two motions in your packet. Assistant City Manager Randy Reedy may have items to add to this presentation, but that concludes ComDev's presentation this evening.
We have nothing further, Matt.
Nothing to add. Questions or comments?
A question.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So you indicated that you asked them to put, if you can go back to the site plan there, native grasses along the sides that don't require the trees and the landscaping on that. You didn't mention if they agreed to that. You said that you suggested they put that there. Was there an agreement and consensus to that?
We just received this landscape plan today, and we have indicated to the applicant that they need to put the grasses in that area, and that was provided to them at about 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon, and I've just not heard back from them.
And then going on, since that part there connects to the trails and everything like that, and you just want to have native grasses there, wouldn't it make sense to me to kind of maybe beautify that area as you're coming in and out of the park to make it just kind of look aesthetically pleasing versus having like native grasses and all that stuff, just to kind of show there is an attractiveness coming from the park to their park and vice versa? me, that would make.
On which section are you talking about?
Over there in the entrance there, right up, yeah, right over there in that area.
That is landscape now on the city's portion. There
Okay.
are a series of trees and grasses there. What we're proposing is just a pressure fine trail to.
Just to connect.
Just to connect, okay.
Just kind of crushing through the grasses.
All right, great. Thanks for the clarification. I have no more questions.
Other questions or comments?
As a witness to all of the activity in Riverside Park, I just would like to make sure that the city on that 50-foot-long trail maybe put some signage there on what's allowed and what's not allowed. The two things that I can see that would probably need to be addressed, especially coming from an RV park, are dogs on a leash and also no motorized vehicles, which we do see a lot of dogs off leash anyway, and motorized vehicles. And I mean dirt bikes, four-wheelers, things that like to run people over, things that like to bite people. So I would like the city to have some nice signage, and along with the signage at Doggy Waste Station would be very, very nice. And as far as grass and stuff goes, I think where the landscaping is, I'm glad that you guys have a nice landscaping plan and barrier, because those are homes that are right there, and by all means they probably would appreciate some kind of a nice view of landscaping instead of RVs. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Neal.
Yes, I would still like to express my concerns regarding this property is being in the floodplain. And I've already had some comments from people that are in the Bella Vista Mobile Home Park regarding development of this, that were concerned about it. So even though it was a compromise that we reached with them, I still feel that it's not in the best interest of the city to allow development in a known flood area, and I will be opposed to this.
Thank you, Fred. Other comments or questions?
I have none.
I have none either. I just touch on yours, Councilmember Neal. I see where you're coming from on that, but these are going to be mobile RVs that are able to get out of there if there was an event coming in. That's why we agreed to that. These aren't structured into the ground. These have to be able to move, and that's a requirement of the vehicles that they're operative and can move. So that's why I'm okay with this. As far as the site plan goes, I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks great. I do like your idea on a couple of the signs, and a sign going the other way saying private property for them as well. So
Yes.
I think it looks great, and I'm in favor of it. So I see no other questions or comments. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the site improvements agreement for the Eastwood Village RV Park and to authorize the mayor to sign the site improvements agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the site improvements agreement for the Eastwood Village RV Park and authorize the mayor to sign the site improvements agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5, consideration of resolution number 33-2020 regarding petition for annexation filed by McConnell and Spaeth, I hope I said that right, for properties located at 1280 Brantner Road and 4333 West Service Road, and setting a public hearing date to consider the annexation and change of zone. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn this over to Community Development Director Ann Bess Johnson for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Jim and Mayor, members of City Council. This evening, what we're doing is we're hearing the petition that staff has determined that the petition is filed completely according to state statute, and then setting the hearing dates in the future to hear the annexation and the change of zone. We're not here to talk about land use or zoning or anything at this moment in time, but just to give you a reference, this is the parcel right here. It's on Brantner Road. Brantner Road is not being proposed to be annexed at this time. It does have contiguity, so it's touching the city already by more than probably 40%, if not half 50% contiguity, which exceeds the 1/6 requirement. This is 1280 Brantner Road. This little sliver right here is 4333 West Service Road. The petition was accepted by staff as compliant. If accepted, the clerk will forward the petition to the county. Annexation and zoning hearing dates and providing notice to surrounding property owners and the county will be followed according to Colorado revised statutes. We are proposing that the hearings are December 1st and 15th because that meets the notice and publication requirements. And then an annexation impact report is not required due to the parcels being less than 10 acres in size. So that concludes staff comments.
Okay, thank you. Questions of staff, comments? Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Just a point of clarification. You said December 1st and December 15th, and here it says November 17th and December 1st.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark, for prompting me to let you know. I do have changes to both the agenda report and the resolution indicating that it would be December 1st and December 15th. If you want paper copies, I have those here. And again, I apologize. That was a mistyping and calculation of dates on my part.
Modified motion.
Other questions or comments?
I have none.
Councilmember Spear?
What is at this location currently?
Currently, it is a collection of vehicles and trucks. And the applicants are working through Weld County zoning compliance. And they are wanting to clean the site up, and they actually have cleaned the site up quite a bit in the past 6 months. And they will be looking to continue that process. And they know that they will need to go through either a site plan or a special use permit through the city for any future land use on the property. And they'll be notified of our nuisance codes and compliance codes and our development standards and what our expectations are for development of the properties. On the 4333, it's actually kind of a cute little historic facade, perhaps. It's very narrow, it's small. It looks like at one time it might have been an automobile repair shop. But there could be some historic significance to that.
Question, Councilmember Spear?
Yeah.
Councilmember Neal?
The small building they're going to use for, to extend their auto repair business.
Right now, they're not using it for an auto repair business, and I have yet to see a site plan or a special use permit to know what the intention is. So right now, the hearing that you'll be considering to set will be to consider what those zone districts could be and if the city does want to annex those into the city. So we might have more information by December 1st.
Well, as long as they're working to clean it up, it's definitely got a lot of used vehicles sitting, along that whole service road and the back side of it on Brantner. So,
and Mayor,
it'd be an improvement.
Yeah, Mayor, just so that the council is clear, annexation is really a three-step process, and I think that if you have concerns about the property, I think that those should certainly be addressed during the process. But the first step is essentially says we got a petition and we're setting hearing dates. So you don't really get into any of the merits of the property tonight. You just set the dates. The other thing I wanted to mention, because you have asked questions about the property, annexation is like writing on a blank sheet of paper. There is no obligation on the city to annex property, and so unless you can come to an agreement with the property owner, you don't have to annex it. So what I would recommend is that you go ahead and just set the dates tonight and then think about what you want for the property and provide those comments to staff between now and the next meeting. As I said, there are three steps. Tonight's to set the hearing dates. The next step is what's called an eligibility determination. There you just look at, is it 1/6 contiguous? Is there a commonality of interest? And then the third step, and traditionally you have compressed the second and third steps into one, which you'll do on December 1st. The third step is to say, yes, we're going to annex it, and this is how we're going to zone it. So.
Thank you, Scott. There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 33-2020 as proposed and establish the hearing dates to be December 1st and December 15th, 2020.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution number 33-2020 as proposed and to establish the hearing dates to be December 1st and December 15th, 2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 6, consideration of 2021 operating and capital budget. Resolution number 30-2020, adopting a 2021 budget. Ordinance number 730-20, 2021 budget appropriations, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2021 budget was introduced to the council at a work session on September 15th, and at that time, council held an extensive discussion, heard lots of detail about the budget and themes and challenges for 2021. The process we have this evening is the first regular meeting session, public hearing of the budget. And for that reason, I've asked Jackie Trout, our finance director, to provide a summarized overview of the budget. I'll also remind council that the budget has been in the works for some time. The finance committee also reviewed it on September 8th, 2020. So council's been working on this for some time. The entire budget document is in the council packet. I believe you have hard copies of the budget document at the dais, as well as there are hard copies of the budget available for the public in the back. And with that, I would turn it over to Jackie for an overview.
Thank you. And I'll the slide's already up. I look up. Good evening, Mayor Rudy, members of City Council. As Jim mentioned, the budget included in your packet information is unchanged from the information presented to you on September 15th. We do have a few slides to remind us as we look at adoption on first reading tonight of the 2021 budget, some of the factors that went into that. As you recall, we have a few guiding principles and challenges in creation of the 2021 budget. We looked at it in two parts, knowing that we're setting the January 1, 2021 levels currently based on the information that we have at hand. We then will come back in April revisiting how we finished out the 2020 year, the first quarter of 2021, and we'll revisit those assumptions again. So you'll hear this very, very soon, but our best information we have tonight shows that we're at a budget gap for next year's budget of about $1.6 million. We feel that it's important to preserve those services to the residents of Evans until the severity of this crisis is known. So while we're looking for every cut that we can make at the time to lessen the impact on the residents, we know that it's important for us to continue to provide those services. We have identified some pretty significant reductions, totaling about $1.1 million in next year's budget that we'll detail here in a second. And again, that's based on the best available revenue information we have to date. So it's changing often. We haven't seen anything that's changed since. We've brought detailed information to council that would lead us to think we need to change any assumptions at this point. Part of that $1.1 million reduction is freezing vacancy savings that we have in the city, reducing supplies and services costs where we're able, and suspending merit and step increases for next year. This plan will need us to use about $500,000 of reserves in the general fund to balance the budget as we're required to do so, which we'll talk about as well. Our total general fund revenues, in kind of that shaded box in the middle, just shy of $13 million anticipated for next year's budget. You'll notice that even with a very small increase in the outer years, it will take us many years for us to get back to the level we were in 2018, 2019, when those revenues were up $15, $16 million. So we do have some significant time for us to get back to that point where we were. As we mentioned, budget gap for 2021 is showing about $1.6 million. Our revenues and transfers in to the general fund, $14.4 million. We have operating expenditures of $16 million. To bridge that, if we weren't able to identify reductions, we would need to request using fund balance or that savings of $1.6 million. And we would be left with the year end about $9 million in our ending fund balance. We did, however, identify where we can cut to find $1.1 million in next year's budget. You'll notice it's structured by services that are seen to be core and essential to the residents of Evans that may also have less ability to reduce expenditures while still providing those services. So the areas of public safety and infrastructure are seeing a 5% supplies and services reduction for next year's budget. Areas of community development, economic development, and administrative services are showing a 10% reduction. Recreation, we discussed in detail on the 15th. We're anticipating a 25% cost reduction there because they're not able to operate at 100%. Recreation is the most versatile department, meaning that when restrictions are lifted and we're able to operate at a higher capacity, those revenues will come back to offset whatever costs may be incurred above this level as well. The supplies and services reduction in total then, a little over $300,000 anticipated for next year. $600,000 of savings is also shown for keeping vacant positions vacant and not funding those next year. About $200,000 will be saved for holding current salary levels and not awarding step or merit increases next year, which gets us to that $1.1 million. So there on the left, again, if we did nothing, we'd be asking for $1.6 million of our fund balance to be used for next year's budget. Because we were able to identify the $1.1 million, this structure shows planned use of that fund balance of about $500,000, leading our ending fund balance to $10.2 million after the activity of next year. So 2/3 of that budget gap, we were able to find savings to cover. It's important for us to note that our expenditures continue to go up in our long-term projection. While our revenues are going up as well, we have challenges with property tax uncertainty in the future years. We have good growth projection information in here, the best of what we know today. That also leads to some fluctuation in our revenues. Without some significant change in our revenue structure or significant change in our expenditure structure, that budget gap will continue to grow. So it is something that, as we mentioned, when we come back in April, we'll revisit the long-range plan, and we'll be consistently looking at ways to manage that and getting ahead of that. Spoken a few times about our ending fund balance and what that means to the city. We do anticipate that ending fund balance to be $10.2 million in next year's budget. Council has set per policy 50% reserve threshold of the prior year operating expenditures, which tells us about $7.5 million needs to be set aside for those things in green: sudden economic downturn, a loss of a major sales tax payer, a natural disaster, or other investment opportunity that the city may want to pursue. Even taking that off, we have about $2.7 million in excess of that 50% that's set aside by your policy. Enterprise fund overview. We have water, wastewater, and storm shown on this slide. Pretty similar structure to each. Our water fund resources coming in next year, about $7.6 million. Got a little over $6 million in operating expenditures, 1.1 in capital, and our ending fund balance, which is our cash balance for enterprise funds, about $4.7 million. And we talked last time about that ending fund balance being reserved for things like expansion and major capital projects coming up for all three of these systems. In wastewater, similarly, about $6.5 million of revenue coming in. Operating expenses in the wastewater fund are a little over $4 million. We also have a large amount of capital planned in wastewater fund for next year, over $3 million, and that ending cash balance or fund balance is about 9.3. In storm drainage, we've talked a lot about this fund lately. Resources of about $950,000 next year, operating expenses $1.2 million, and a large amount of capital. So that east side storm drainage project that we're putting a lot of focus on here lately is that $8.6 million of capital expenses, and that storm drainage fund ends with about $400,000. We only have 2 items that are asset management plan in next year's budget. Again, those are items that are the smaller, shorter useful life capital item. We have a replacement of a cardio machine that is necessary to keep some movement in replacing of equipment that's dying and on its last leg in recreation. We also anticipate continued need for repairs on our roof here in this building. So we do have both of those budgeted next year. Capital projects, I won't go over these. This is the same information we have talked about in prior presentations and prior conversations. I think it's everything but enterprise here. It's important to note we have multiple road projects as priorities next year. All of our street maintenance that council's put as priority for next year is included, as well as items like the design and construction of the parking lot here that's been a priority and have asked to be included in next year's budget. I think there's a little bit over $4 million in non-enterprise capital funds and a large amount here of enterprise work to be done. System expansion, money that we're setting aside for water in case we need that for CAP with our water treatment with Greeley. We also have wastewater replacement planning money being set aside for equipment and plant replacement needs that we may have. Decommissioning of the wastewater treatment plant site is another big one. And then again in storm drainage is our $8.6 million of east side storm drainage projects. In summary, citywide, we have revenue coming in next year of about $38 million. Operating expenditures, about $28.5 million. And capital projects round out $17 million of projects slated for next year. The net result there is a negative $7.4 million. What that signifies is that we have done a good job of accumulating money to be able to do some of these large capital projects. So $17 million of work. We had primarily the revenue budgeted in storm drainage fund to come in this year. So that's why there's a little bit of difference of when the money's coming in and when the money's coming out there. In total, about almost $35 million ending fund balance citywide. That's ends the presentation. As Jim mentioned, the line item budget detail is also available that supports the larger numbers in the budget book, which also supports the resolution and ordinance for your consideration tonight.
Go ahead,
Mayor,
Jim. Yep.
I might just conclude by mentioning that it would be appropriate to open a public hearing on this item tonight. It was not shown that way, but it would be appropriate to do that.
Okay. So I will open the public hearing. Is that all I need to do, Scott?
That's all you have
Open
to
a public hearing. And that was staff's presentation, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Saying none, is there anyone in the, online? Is there anyone online? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Seeing none, there will be no rebuttal. Is there any questions of staff? We'll reserve the comments for a minute. Questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments?
Jackie, I want to say thank you again to you and your staff for putting together a fantastic budget. As always, you guys do a great job breaking it down to us and giving us all the information we need to make a informed decision about passing the budget. One thing I want to say is I'm hopeful, based on what I think I saw for August, that our sales tax numbers were up and we actually did better than we did in 2019. And I hope that trend continues throughout the rest of the year, even though we're in these kind of unknown times. And maybe some of that money that we need for the reserve funding won't have to be utilized as much, and our budget will be a lot better, going forward if we continue on this trend of our sales tax increase. So thank you very much, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Other comments?
I just want to say, being on the finance committee, I got all my questions pretty much answered, at the committee meetings. However, I do want to compliment the staff on listening to what the desires of city council were. I know we had talked anywhere from, going up from no changes, and diving into our reserves to up to 40% change. And I think we've kind of been able to balance things out. And I know that it's been a lot of hard work for the finance staff. And as always, they've done a really fabulous job. So thank you.
Other comments?
I just want to echo what everyone mentioned, and thank you, and also thank you to everyone, because all of you are also partaking in this, and because of all you, we're able to, continue forward in a positive trend. So let's hope for better months and a better year, and we'll see how things work out. But thank you so much to everyone, and thank you, Jackie, for all your work and staff.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Neal.
Jackie, when will you have an update on September sales tax collections?
September is due today, actually, so it's usually the first week of the following month that we get the motor vehicle tax from the county. So it'll be early here in November.
Any other comments? Well, like they all said, thank you guys and the finance team as well. You guys did a fantastic job with the unknowns that 2020 has brought us, and I think we're got a good picture of where we need to be next year, so fantastic job. Are there no other comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 30-2020 and approve ordinance number 730-20 on first reading.
Second.
A motion is second to adopt resolution number 30-2020 and approve ordinance number 730-20 on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is consideration of agreement with financial statement auditor, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is the product of really a best practice in auditor practices, I guess, where it is appropriate and recommended that even if your auditor is doing a very good job, which ours was, that it's appropriate to go out to bid, look to the market, and seek proposals for your auditor about every 5 years. And so I know Evans has done that in the past. We continue that practice, and so over the last couple of months, our finance staff, led by our finance director, Jackie Trout, we have gone out to the market. We had several firms interested, and our finance committee spent significant time talking to the interested firms. And with that, I'll let Jackie share the rest of the story and the recommendation that we have for you tonight on our auditors for 2021.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening again. So we did have 5 proposals received from our RFP that was released in January and closed in September. Of those 5 proposals, finance staff scored them according to experience, overall presentation of their proposal, who we thought could meet our timelines and needs of the city. And we did have a very clear break. Our top 3 scoring firms were invited to present actually a week ago at our finance committee. They gave 20 minutes each to just let us know a little bit more about their firm and their approach and how they may be able to best serve Evans. Really great quality. I think Evans would have been in good hands with any of the top 3 that did present information to us. One of them being our current auditors of ACM, who's now BDO. After some discussion amongst the finance committee after those presentations, the recommendation was to change auditors, which the city hasn't done for many years. So the current firm of ACM that's done our audit, who is now BDO, has performed the audit in many capacities in the past as their firm has changed names and merged with other companies. And as Jim mentioned, they've provided great service to us in the past, and that's been a very successful working relationship for us. However, in looking with a fresh set of eyes at some of the firms, the recommendation to award the auditing contract to Haney and Company was arrived by the Finance Committee. So they are a local Colorado firm based out of Littleton. They're a smaller firm. They're not a huge national firm. I think we'll have good consistency with the faces we work with. We'll see them often. We'll see them again year after year, which is important to us. And should be able to give us the level of attention and information and assistance we need. So they're well-versed in governmental accounting and governmental auditing, and work with other cities and districts and communities our size. And I think we'll be in very good shape working with them in the future. So before you tonight is a consideration to award that contract to them. It's important for council to remember that the financial auditor and that external party there works for you. So they're charged with that communication level directly to city council. They would communicate with you all and through finance committee if there were issues or good information to share. So it's important and appropriate for city council to approve them. The contract price for 2020 audit that would be done in 2021 is $33,800, which is very comparable to what we've been paying currently. And while that threshold is under $50,000 and we would ask our city manager's signature on that contract, it's appropriate for city council to approve that award. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. You did have their proposal in your packet just to get a better sense for who the firm is and what they do.
You kind of just answered my question, but my one question would be, you said there were 3 that kind of stood out from the other 2, but we don't see anywhere how much their bids were. Is this pretty close to what their prices all were?
They were within hundreds of dollars.
Perfect. That's good to know. Maybe next time include that in here. Just we got to watch our money. We just went over the budget, but I just want to make sure one wasn't a lot less than if they were in your top 3. Save some money here. But
That's
if they
a
were
good
all
point.
right there, that makes sense.
Right, Haney was the lowest of the 3 that we looked at. In full transparency, the 2 that we didn't have proposed to finance committee were less in cost, who couldn't meet our deadlines
Sure.
or didn't seem to have the knowledge and expertise.
That's why I just mentioned the 3 you said were all pretty good. I want to make sure one wasn't a lot less. Thank you. Other questions of staff?
I have none.
I have none.
No,
Or comments?
I just think that we had 3 really good interviews. Like Jackie said, we would have been in good hands with any of them. I think Haney and company really knocked it out of the ballpark, and they were very, they're a local company, which we kind of liked, but they also really stressed transparency and honesty, and I think that that the finance committee the finance team will be very pleased with them, and they'll be very easy to work with too.
Councilmember Neal, did I see your hand go up?
Yes. Well, I was a little bit shocked to find out that we had this auditing firm for so long, but at least they rotated their staff so that not the same people were working with the city every year. So I'm pleased that that we are switching companies, because I do realize this is something that needs to be done. You need to have fresh eyes looking at the books and fresh people doing that in that 5-year period. So I'm pleased that you could find someone competent opinion to audit different a little bit.
Councilmember Neal, any other questions or comments?
I just have a comment. I do appreciate, the finance committee, I'm definitely recommending this as well, and I trust, their judgment on this. And I also, want to state that, I do appreciate, looking into finding another firm to assist us with that, because any service, we always want to make sure it's cost effective for the city. So that's definitely important. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think what's important too for people to understand is, going into this, the 3 top scoring firms, one of which includes the firm we've worked with historically, all did a really good job, all presented well, all came in on equal footing. I think what set it apart for us with Haney was their ability to really focus and have constant trust and communication with the city. I've had the privilege of working with all of the firms, and while I think they're all fantastic, I know the experience I've had with Haney has been outstanding. They do an extremely good job, so I was really pleased to see their proposal. And ultimately, like Jackie said, they were just so down to earth, and I knew they were speaking the truth, which was nice. But they did a really great job, and I think we're in very, very good hands.
And it's nice that they're local.
Anyone else? Councilmember Neal?
Well, I think according to generally accepted accounting practices that the reason you bid these every 5 years is so that you have transparency and you do have a different set of eyes looking at the books and performing maybe a little bit different sampling. So I'm pleased that we are switching to another company.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I move to award the 2020 financial statements audit contract to Haney and Company and to authorize the mayor's signature on an agreement in the amount of $33,800.
I second.
A motion and a second to award the 2020 financial statement audit contract to Haney and Company and authorize the mayor's signature on an agreement in the amount of $33,800. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Jackie. Item 8, report city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an update tonight on the 37th Street concrete and overlay project as we're heading into the busiest weeks of that project. They're still on schedule, and we'll be seeing lots of different work happening in the next couple of weeks. They'll be completing the concrete work on the west side of Highway 85 and moving to the east side of Highway 85 for the concrete replacement there. Will also be, you'll see starting tomorrow, you'll see the base reconstruction work that's been planned, as you've seen, likely the very deep milling that's happened on the lanes on the south side of the road. They'll be starting the base reconstruction in the areas that need it. Fortunately, they found some of the areas that they thought might need it do not. So there might be a little bit of savings on that work. Finally, the rotomilling work will continue once they're able to complete the base work on the southernmost lanes. They'll be moving and continuing milling on the north side lanes, the westbound lanes, and they'll be also beginning the asphalt placement, the asphalt overlay work in those lanes that have been both milled and reconstructed where needed. So all that work will be happening. We will have 2 lanes or 2 ways of traffic for this next phase of the work. I'm not aware of any requests at this point for even temporary changes to that. And they even planned for and assumed a little bit of snow this weekend, and that won't affect their schedule. So far, staff is pleased with progress, and we look forward to that project continuing. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. We had the update tonight of what the legislature has done within the last year. We're in the midst of the CML Attorneys Conference, which is every Friday for the last 2 and the next 2. And once that's over, then I'll be able to update you on what the courts have done that affects municipalities for the past year. And that's it.
Okay, thanks. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? None. Is there anyone online? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is executive session.
I move to go into executive session to determine positions relative to matters subject to negotiations, developing a strategy for negotiations, and instructing the negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, subsection 4 and E.
I second.
Motion and second to go into executive session.